Um, hello everyone. Welcome to the final session of this conference. So I'm Jason, and today I've wrote some letter to product manager and designers. So hello product managers and designers around the world. So I'm a developer making apps for iOS platform. And I have been working with you quite a while so far through all those feature mockups. I have been received a lot of feature mockups about like new interesting features. And like all those sprints, think about how many sprints we've been working with, a lot. Yeah, we've been a very good team. We've talked a lot about making apps great, how to make apps, how do we make our apps more efficiently and make it more fun to use it. And through those experiences, I was able to see how the UI and UX can be creative, and also how to make users engage our apps more through like all sorts of techniques and frameworks we use. And I want to help those process a bit more with a developer's perspective on those issues, on top of them. So today I want to talk. So there are 2 points in my speech today. So first one is it's a bit more sophisticated than it looks like. So there are a bit more things we need to consider on making apps great. And second one is mobile apps are not photos, but movies. So let's dive into the first part. So it's a bit more complicated. It's a bit more complicated and sophisticated than it looks like. Let's take an example as a typography. Let's think about typography in iOS. There are many things to consider in the first place, like dynamic type, as Danny talked before. And also there are like bold font system setting. This is like system-wise setting for make font bold. And also we need to consider very well when we are using basically custom font. When we import some custom font and use it in our apps, we need to make sure that it renders correctly. Like dynamic type, there's an example code. Here comes again. So we initialize label, we set font, and rather than using a specific point size, we use a style. In this case, it's headline. Why is it important? Because like dynamic type, like it's adaptive font, it's adaptive to the system settings. And there are like 6 sizes and 5 accessibility sizes. So dynamic type is only for accessibility options. Basically, it's user preferences. Everybody are supposed to be changed on their preference. So as you can see, there are small fonts. The app can have small font or very big font for accessibility reasons. Yeah, like even for typography, there are many things to consider. Like it's not just font with 12-point size or 15-point size. Then it's a bit scary, right? Even for the typography, when there are many things to consider, how do we manage all of those? And I've seen there are one thing called human interface guideline for iOS. I've seen this got neglected quite often. But I found it very useful because it is of course official from Apple. This is authored by Apple developers and engineers. So it's official basically. And it is not only talking about UI element like segmented control or label or videos, but it is also talk about some abstract things like what are good apps, what are good user experiences, or various input methods, hardware support, or system-level features app can utilize. it's interesting to see, it is very interesting to see that it is also talking about good user experiences. It is not just saying that, oh, there's A and B, you can do this in that way, you can do that way, but it is talking about good UX. For example, how to write a good alert title and message. Like they talk about, oh, for alert message or alert title, it should be in this way, it should be in that way, it should be uppercase, it should be lowercase, it should finish with period, or it should be in full text. So it's not just talking about technical references, but it's also talking about what is good thing. Like it's a bit abstract, but it's so it's a very it goes very deep. Like also like how to make good loading screen. Have you ever think about what is good loading screen? This Apple design guideline talk about this. Like, okay, what is good loading screen? How to make loading screen good? So yeah, it is more sophisticated than it looks like. So even for typography or choosing a color is very is complex work. Complex. It takes a lot of complex processes to decide anything for even small things like that. But like going to the very basic, even the concept of an app, like when you say oh apps, we say apps a lot through our work, even with my friends. Even when we talk to our friends, we say oh apps. This app is good. That app is good. Which app do you use for that? But the concept of app itself is very is more sophisticated and complex when you think about it more like when we contemplated it. So for example, like let's think about the history of the apps. So Steve Jobs came and God said, let's do 3, and everything begins. So when we think about an app, we say, oh, Steve Jobs started everything on the apps. But yeah, it's just a joke. I use also Windows CE with their XMPDA. Anybody here used PDA before with Windows CE? My first mobile devices was their XMPDA. I don't exactly remember the modern name, but it was their XMPDA. My father bought it for me. And there was an app in there too, like it was touch screen. There was a stylus we touched, and even back then I was also using Wi-Fi. Like yeah, so it's not only Steve Jobs who introduced the concept. So let's say Steve Jobs came in and he introduced an app, and it was like this. The concept of mobile app was basically there was an array of icon. We click it, and it takes the whole screens. And this is the app we usually think and talk about. But it was literally a decade ago. Yeah, it was released in 2007, so 12 years ago. With internet time, like we say, internet time is kind of fossil fuel, like fossil. So it's very, very long time ago. And so the apps has been fighting hard to breaking down the box. So the first concept was a box. It's a rectangular box taking the full screen, and the app has been fought very hard to breaking down those boxes. And finally, recently, I think 2 years ago, it succeeded. It dented the screen, edge of the screen. Now there is some, how does it call it? There's some, yeah, basically they dented the edges, and more importantly, they also jumped out of the box. Now, when we think about the apps, it's not only about those rectangular screen taking up all the or rectangular things taking up all the screens when you touch an icon. It's now widget and iMessages, or sometimes customized notification is also part of the app. And also, sometimes you can provide some custom UI for Siri. And like home screen actions. This is one of the most. This is the first thing I do when I come to the office. I sign in line message by scanning QR code on my Mac. So this is, I think, so this is very important for me to use home screen quick action to. It's very important interaction for me and line. And yeah, so they jumped out of the box and they got the identity matches. But it's not the only things have happened, and the future will be more dramatic. Like recently, Apple let us bring our iPad app to Mac. It was called Project Catalyst, but it's not officially called Project Catalyst, I think. They just say bring your iPad app to Mac. And also Swift UI. So Swift UI let us write views once and display it everywhere. So Swift UI looks like this, is declarative syntax to build UI, just like HTML. So it have images, text, spacers, and it is not related to specific hardware or dimensions. So before each OS, iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, macOS, and tvOS, there's watchOS doubled, was kind of in silo. We were building apps for each platform, but now the boundaries are removed. So it's not really that clear that when we are making a view or UI component, is it for only iOS or watchOS? Because basically, when we write some view, it is for all of this platform. So far we have been calling us like iOS developer, but now I think we are more like a Swift developer. Like when we write some Swift code, it is supposed to be on every platform rather than iOS. So yeah, UX UI does not end or finished. They are not only in those rectangular box. They are everywhere now, and the concept got more complex and sophisticated. And the second part is that mobile apps are not photos, but movies. So this is I want to talk about one of the most the most pain point I've got while working with designers. So usually when we get designs, they are in one-dimensional flow. So there are some pictures by pictures, and they are connected through some flows. And usually they are like iPhone X or iPhone 8, which is standard screen for that time. But those are very hard to adapt to different sizes of different screen sizes. Like think about iPhone SE, the size difference between iPhone SE and XX Max. So iPhone XX Max is almost 2 times as larger than iPhone SE. So design should be responsive. Like responsive design, we have heard a lot in web front end. And this is now a thing in mobile development too. Like the screen size are vary a lot. So responsive design in mobile apps are a thing now. And actually, I've also had problem about this yesterday, where we releasing an app. Like one of the design was not fit to SE, so we need these kind of very essential informations, like where to snap or align our element, like where should we, and how to lay out an element with each other's, like where should we put, basically where should we put constraint from here to there, and how to wrap those content inside, because usually their static image is really hard to see how to handle when the content inside overflows the current sizes in the design. So I really understand that it's mostly because of the constraint of the tools we are using, like some tools doesn't support this and some tool doesn't support that. If it is really hard to visualize those in the mockups and the tools we are using, then it will still be fine with some texture information in it, like some note or even verbally, like when there's a time to, when there's a chance where we can talk each other, then we can talk about, okay, so if there is an image, we aligned here or there. If there's a text, we truncate the tail, or we truncate in the middle, or wrap the line. So there should be some kind of communication about that. And the other thing is, usually when we implement, like, yeah, so when we got some information, when we got the design, they're usually one-dimensional static mocks, so we need more information about those. And usually when we are implement those design, so while we are, so let's say there's a mock, there's a very nice mock here. So it's one of my favorite app called Tweetbot from Tweetbot. So it looks very nice, and it shows us how we can see the detail from Twitter feed, and also how to interact for each tweet. But when we actually code and debug, this is what we see. They are moving. There's transition to different screens. Going back, there are parallax effect. And the heart, I mean, there's drawer coming down from the tweet. And also there's a very nice image on the heart from in the middle, in the drawer, and the top right corner of the tweet. So these things got more serious when we need to support multiple platforms like iOS and Android at the same time. We want to make it look same. We want to make the animation and behavior. We want to implement those in the same way. Then there should be some single place where it is where they are defined. Because on Android and iOS have different convention, and system default UI and animations are different, and so it is really important to find the in-between where we can implement an animation or transition in the same way in both Android and iOS platforms. So it should be in the design, or some kind of it should be designed. It should be designed by designers, and it should be transferred to the developers. If it is hard, just leave us some comment, or like talk verbally. Okay, so thank you for hearing my humble opinions. So dear product manager and dear designers and product managers, it is more sophisticated than it looks like. Even the concept of the app, we talk a lot the word apps, but it's not that simple. Like, the apps are not just in the square box, in the rectangular box. They are everywhere now, and the shape of the apps are now very different from different from point to point. And also, they are not just phone anymore. Now they are iPad, TV, watch, also Mac, now even in the Mac. So, like, apps, there are more meaning behind than it used to be. Yeah, and the mobile apps are not photos, but movies. Like, we need more information on how to animate, or how to execute the transitions. So yeah, like, just basically, we can think more out of the box. As the concept of the apps got evolved for the last 10 years, 12 years, our thinking, our perception of the app should be also evolved and grow. And let us more detail about animations. I think it's very. I think this is the problem the industry is solving now with all those apps. All those like tools we are using for design, like InVisions or Figma. I think this is what we are trying to solve. So I think we can dramatically increase our productivity by containing those information in the design in the first place, so we can, Android or iOS can implement those at the same time in homogeneous way. Yeah, so those will be very helpful us to deliver better UX or UI to users, which I think is the purpose of our job. Our job is to deliver the better UI or UX than currently existing out there, to make, basically is to give more value to the users. So they come to us, they get some value by using our apps. And this will help us to deliver UX, UI also to chimpanzees, maybe? I'm not sure if this is CG or not. Does anybody know that if this is real or not? Please let me know later after we finish this conference. So yeah, like now even animals are using our apps. Thank you very much.
Anyone has any questions? I think everyone is really focused on the video. Any questions? Okay, let's give him a big applause again. Thanks, Jason, sharing.